Welcome to Starting a Business Simplified. I am your host, Suzy Wraines. And in this episode, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually moving some stuff around here while I'm on because I'm going to answer some questions. Recently, I was asked by the RVpreneur podcast and business to answer some questions. I am an RVer, full-time RVer with my husband, 2 dogs and 2 cats, for those of you that don't know. And I was on the RVpreneur, it's hard to say that, RVpreneur podcast as a guest recently. And they also have a column that they do, a written column. And Kimberly, who's one of the people there, she had asked me if I wouldn't mind actually answering some questions that she does for the column. And I thought, you know what? This is a great way for me as the podcast host to answer the questions on a podcast episode. So you guys can actually get the answers to these questions that are going to be in the column, the written column that's going to go out later. And it helps for you as the listeners to get to know me a little bit, learn more about what it's like to be a entrepreneur while living in an RV and on the road. And I just think it's fun. So I'm going to ask the questions and then answer them. I'm just going to go through them. So if for those of you watching the video, if you see me looking away, I have the questions on one part of my screen and then I'm looking to read the question and then I'll answer them. So let's dive in. So, what is your name and what do you do? I'm Suzy Wraines. I am a business foundations coach, and I work with people who are transitioning from a medical position or medical career into starting their own service based business. I help them with creating their business foundation. So, writing out their roadmap from their vision of what they want their business to be, all the way through marketing, operations, finance, all of the puzzle pieces that go together to create a service based business. The next question: how do you seek adventure on the open road? I love this question. So, when we go out on the road, one of the biggest things that we love to do is, well, there's several. Hiking is a must. We hike and snowshoe. So, if it's weather, there's winter weather happening, we love to snap on snowshoes and hike through the snow. In the summertime, it's hiking, just straight up hiking, finding trails. We like to be near waterfalls. So streams, rivers, lakes that have water, moving water, those are things that we enjoy. And so we always look for places to go that have good hiking and or good snowshoeing if it's going to be wintertime. The other thing that we love is we love to take photographs. So finding really beautiful places that we can capture the nature. Being in nature is the biggest thing for us being out on the open road. The other part of seeking adventure is finding a parking space. We have a 44-foot toy hauler and we have a long bed dually truck. So for us, part of the adventure is finding a place to park our trailer that is in these beautiful nature places. Many times it's harder to find parking for a longer, bigger trailer like we have and a truck to park in the more secluded type areas. So it can be tricky, but we find places to park and then maybe we drive to go hiking or go exploring. We just drive to the places that we want to do that. The next question: what inspired you to start this business? What inspired me to start this business was I wanted to do coaching and I wasn't sure what type. I have a business degree and so I understood business structures and things like that. So I got my coaching certification in health and life coaching, and I thought I wanted to do health coaching. And I started down that path and realized as I was going through it that I didn't really like it that much. I wasn't really into the health coaching side. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. And so I thought, a lot of the coaches that I went to school with through my certification process and other coaches that I met that were doing coaching practices, a lot of them didn't have a business foundation. They just started coaching, started taking money and coaching. And because I have a business background, I thought, you know what? Something that's missing is what are the steps to start a business? What are those things that you absolutely need to know how to do in order to build the foundation of a business that you're going to start so that you can grow and scale and expand. And a lot of people they didn't have that. And so I ended up writing a guide. And in my guide, it's step by step. This is what you do first, second, third, like go through the steps. Everything ties together. And then when you're done, you have a foundation. You have your roadmap, exactly what your business is, how much you charge, who you sell to, what are your finances looking like, what are your goals, how are you going to reach your financial goals, all of that. And so I was inspired to launch this into a business when people were using my guide and they needed help going through it. That launched my one-on-one coaching because I take all my one-on-one clients through the steps of the guide and I coach them through that. So I work with them on limiting beliefs. Some of them have trauma in their past or current traumas, long stressors over time that have made it difficult for them to transition and to really be able to start their business because they're procrastinating or they have a fear of speaking in front of people or they have a limiting belief around being able to make money doing what it is they want to do. So all of those things combined is how Business Simplified LLC was born. And that's what inspired me was I needed a step by step. I had a business degree and I was still struggling. So that step by step was good for me. And if it was good for me, then I knew other people could benefit from it as well. I like that question. What do you like most about your business? Well, I'm going to say my podcast because I love doing my podcast. I took questions that are asked to me and turned them into a podcast because I love doing my podcast. I like sharing information. I like meeting new people. I just met somebody today. She's another RV person. They actually own an RV park in Canada. Her and I had a chat. She's going to be on the podcast this year. I'm getting her scheduled so we can have a conversation. I just love talking to people, getting to know people, hearing their stories, hitting record, sharing a conversation. I love talking, hence why I have a podcast. So I like having the chitter chatter with myself. And I hope you guys like listening to me. But yes, that is what I like most about my business is having my podcast. And I would say that a tie for that is watching the clients that I work with take an idea for a business and turn it into a successful, lucrative, revenue generating business. And seeing the smile on their face when they sign their first client or when they do their first service, and just how excited they get as their business starts to just grow with that idea and then seeing all the pieces coming together. That's something that really, really drives me in my business as well. What's going through your audience's mind when they come to you for help? That is a great question. I actually did market research and I have a podcast episode coming up this year with another guest speaker, and she's a content writer. And her and I are going to have a conversation around market research. That is a big one for business owners. It's important to know what's going through your audience's mind when they come to you for help. And one way to do that is to do market research. So I did that. I did market research calls, got on the phone with people, asked them specific questions. And what the number one thing that came out of it was I need a step-by-step what do I do in a business? What do I need to focus on? I want something that walks me through step by step. Do this, then do this, then do this. And so that's exactly what I provide. When you're first thinking about starting a business, here's what you do first. After you get an answer there, the next thing is this. Answer those questions. The next thing is this. And that's exactly when people come to me, usually they come to me with overwhelm. They have all these ideas floating around their head and they're like, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to launch this and do this funnel and do this website and meet with people for this and have a podcast and do it. And they have all these ideas just clustered in their head. And then I help give them structure. They come to me and I say, okay, let's take all those things and we're going to prioritize and put them in order of how it is you should be thinking about them. That's a beautiful thing. The next question, Have you designed your business to run while you roam? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So my business has been around for 2 years when you're reading this or when you're listening to this podcast. And my husband and I we actually started our RV adventure 2 years ago. And one of the things that we talked about was we wanted to be able to have my business running while we traveled. The biggest part that we had to look into was internet. I have a podcast. You're listening to it now. I meet with my clients via the internet over Zoom. So I need to have internet and it has to be a good, strong connection. So for us, we designed where we're going to go, where we park our trailer, which again, that goes with it being big, but we park it in places where we actually have access to internet. We use two different types of internet. And so if one isn't working, then the other one can. We use our cell phone with a booster and then we use Starlink. And one of the two of those always works. We make sure we park where it is. One of the ways that we can do that is I use RV Trip Planner, which actually gives you when you look up places to park, they tell you what types of cell service, how good it is, how good the connections are. A lot of the people that stay in the places, they will do an upload so it'll actually show you how fast the speed is. And so a little bit of research goes in, but we basically we designed it so that we can travel and move and still run the business at the same time. The other reason we have a toy hauler is that I have a secluded space. So I work in the toy hauler. For those of you watching the video on YouTube or Spotify, you see the lights behind me with a curtain. This is our garage. So this is actually where I can shut the door. There's a door into the main area. I can shut the door, record my podcast, talk to my clients in privacy. My husband can be in the rest of the trailer doing whatever he wants. He can be in the kitchen, in the bedroom, whatever he wants to do, he can be doing. All right. Next question. What challenges have you faced by running a business from the road? I would have to say the internet has been the biggest one. The two things I've already covered making sure we have internet, which is difficult, and parking the RV. So, mainly finding a place to park the RV that has a good internet connection because we are so big, we don't fit in every place. And then knowing that where we're parked, we can actually get internet. So, those two can be challenging. Next question. If you had to start over again, what would you do differently? This one I go back and forth on. As of right now, really nothing. I can't think of anything I would do differently. My husband and I, we sometimes will look at other trailers, fifth wheels, and RV type living. And we think about would we want a different floor plan? That's probably mostly what we think about is like, does this floor plan work well having a business as well as travel? And our toy hauler actually has a side patio. And so when the weather's nice and it's warm, we keep the side patio out and it actually extends the living space. So it makes it more comfortable to get out and around. Now, behind me, this is the garage. So I could put this patio out and we have 3 season doors. So really, we can extend when the weather's nice and have more living space. So both of us, even though we daydream every once in a while, look at other floor plans, we're like, "Ooh, this one has an office." We kinda like what we have. So I honestly would say I don't think I would do anything differently at this point. Now, that could change in the future. What's the biggest compliment you've ever received? I'm wondering with this question if it's overall in general, or if it's about the RV, or if it's about my business. So I'm going to answer it in multiple different ways. We actually have had some really nice comments about our truck and trailer. We have an Alliance Valor toy hauler, and it's black and white and gray with red highlights. And we've had multiple people when we've pulled into fuel up and get fuel and things like that are like, wow, that is a nice looking rig. So I would say that that actually feels good. Now, I don't ask them to come in where I probably need to do some more cleaning, but the outside is beautiful and we have gotten compliments of that. The next thing that compliments that I've gotten is around my business. And I will say that my podcast, I've had multiple comments about my podcast. If you're listening and you want to write a review, I would love that. Please do that. People commenting that they love the podcast. They love that I have various different types of guests. I talk about my own personal stories. I give really good business advice. So I've had some really good compliments around that in general. And then, of course, people have just complimented me, which is nice. All right. What are you getting excited about right now? Okay. So when this podcast episode goes live, and I'm pretty sure that when the publication goes live, the written part, I can share this. My husband and I are actually traveling to a new place. So we've been parked for about a year in Colorado in our fifth wheel. My husband's been doing a job here. And so we've been excited that we are actually going to move. We're going to move to Arizona and we're planning on going there and staying stationary for a little bit, continuing to work on the business. And actually, my husband's going to help. He's going to be taking over all of my podcast production. Yay! Okay, so if anything goes wrong, it's not my fault. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so he's actually going to be working in the business with me. He's going to be doing the podcast production, taking some of this work off of my plate because I've been doing it all myself. So I'm really getting excited about him working with me and us being full-time business owners together. He's been working outside of the home for the last year. We haven't really been able to travel as much. So I'm looking forward to him coming back and working in the business with me, having more time off, more hiking time, more snowshoeing time, not so much in Arizona, and just being able to travel again. So that's exciting. And the last question is, where can we connect with you? So if you're listening to this podcast, click on the link below and you can join my community for podcast listeners, Starting a Business Simplified podcast listeners community. There's a link for that if you're curious and you want to learn more. For those of you that are reading this in the written portion, this is where SuzyWraines.com is my website. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, Suzy Wraines, and follow my podcast, Starting a Business Simplified. So that is all of the questions that were on the questionnaire for this particular interview to be published. And I'm so happy that I got to answer them for all of you. So if you have other questions for me, please comment on the podcast, join the Facebook community, Starting a Business Simplified podcast listeners community. That's where you can interact with me and other listeners. It's a great community where you can get support around your business. If you're just curious, go ahead and pop in there and ask questions. I would love to chat with you there. And as always, keep it simple.